Welcome to the Bible Savvy Podcast, a weekly conversation about how to understand, enjoy, and apply God's Word. It's time to jump into a new passage from the Bible Savvy reading plan.
Hey, Bible Savvy Nation. We're here with Courtney and David. And David, what's the question today?
Well, guys, it's September, which means it's football season, not running season.
It's also cross-country season.
Oh, this debate, I forgot.
No. So I was like, okay, we got to have a football-themed question. You know, everyone, it's like the temperature's cool enough. It's going to be great. So I was trying to think of something. I was like, okay, what would Courtney and Clayton be able to answer in the football theme? Because last time it turned into like cheerleaders and you know. But the question this time is, if there was a halftime show during your next sermon that you're preaching, who's performing at the halftime show?
Oh my gosh! You got an answer?
So easy.
Okay,
you guys, it's Forrest Frank.
Okay, all right.
How fun would that be?
I do like Forrest Frank a lot.
Yeah, well,
It'd be so
I
fun.
got a son who would be all about
you
it.
could do like, I mean, there'd be like group dancing in the middle of it.
Okay.
There would be
all right,
like
that's
Did you see the thing where like he just wrote a song with these people
with the other people who wrote an imitation
the Lemonade song?
Yeah.
Like come on, he'd probably write a song about your sermon right there.
Oh,
he'd be
probably
like done, and I mean, I think that's a no-brainer.
Wow.
Okay,
that's a decent answer.
That's it.
My answer's gonna be terrible in light of all this.
Perfect.
Because sometimes the people who do the halftime shows are not necessarily the most current, right? Like sometimes they throw back. So I'm going to throw back to my lame interests back in the day.
Don't steal my answer.
Okay,
I feel like you're about to steal my answer. Dang it.
So I've been listening. Here's the truth. I've been listening to a lot of punk, ska, emo.
I actually know who's in
Pop
it.
punk.
Wait,
No.
we might be saying the same thing.
I
know
just
who it would
lately.
be.
So it's definitely Five Iron Frenzy.
Five Iron
It's
Frenzy.
definitely Five Iron.
Yeah.
Okay. But there are other Christian ska bands that I would maybe opt for, and I don't know if that's going to be your answer.
I probably could have
But
named that for you.
I could also do MXPX. Did you ever listen to MXPX?
did, yeah,
punk band?
MXPX, yeah.
Don't know who that is.
But I don't know. I just decided to embrace, like, I don't know if this is a cool era of music, but I really like listening to it right now. So that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I had the same exact idea because they have like these throwback decades where they bring it back because they know the fans are older. But so my first initial one was in the same thread was the OC Supertones.
Oh, the Supertones.
Yeah, that's who I thought.
Supertones Strike Back.
Oh, I am not going to sing that because the first line is about Star Wars.
So anyway, Supertones was my favorite. And I actually years ago I went to a youth pastor conference. This is probably a decade ago, and they had a Supertones reunion show at the youth pastor conference.
That would be the greatest moment of my life.
Bunch of bald-headed, goateed youth pastors who turned into the teenage version of themselves for the next hour.
Yeah.
It was pretty epic.
I've actually been listening to podcasts where they interview 90s and 2000s Christian artists, like people who are like, this is the music we grew up on, and they interview them, and we won't go there.
My backup was going to be Carmen. But
Carmen.
Wow,
that's something else.
That would wake people up in the middle of the sermon.
Yeah,
that is.
And give them nightmares later.
What song is he singing? What's he opening with?
All right, so we are in Joshua. Here we go. Something I keep forgetting to mention in episodes is I did an interview with a Joshua scholar, a guy named Richard Hess, who is fantastic, and I asked him about the questions of like, what's with all the violence? What do we do with them saying we're going to wipe out all the people and that sort of thing? He does a really good job with that. So if that has been troubling you as you've been reading through and listening to Joshua, that might be worth checking out that interview with Richard Hess. All right, context for Joshua 22, which is where we are today. You need to go back to when we were reading the Pentateuch in the book of Numbers, when the people are wandering through the wilderness before they get to the land. As they're trying to approach the land, they get attacked by some people who are not in the land. They're just on the borders, and they don't want the Israelites to pass through. They're saying, you can't walk through our land. And they attack, and of course God defends them, which means the Israelites win, and in the course of doing so, actually win some territory. They don't just defeat the army, they actually take over some of their land, which is not in the promised land. It's outside of it on the other side of the Jordan River. And they say, well, what are we going to do with this? And a couple of the tribes, they look around, they say, this is good land. It'd be great for our flocks. Could we settle here? And they ask Moses permission. They say, could we not go there? Could we just have this land? And Moses says, well, he inquires of God, but the answer ends up being, you can live here. But part of what's going on is everybody else is going over there and they're going to have to fight. They still have battles ahead of them. And so if you want to keep this land, you have to promise to cross over the Jordan, fight with them, and then when the battles are done, you're allowed to go back and settle. And so that's what these tribes do. And so now we're at the end of Joshua, where those tribes have fought with the rest of the people, and they're giving permission or asking permission to go back and settle in that land. So let's read in Joshua 22.
Then Joshua summoned the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and said to them, "You have done all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded, and you have obeyed me in everything I commanded. For a long time now, to this very day, you have not deserted your fellow Israelites, but have carried out the mission the Lord your God gave you. Now that the Lord your God has given them the rest as he promised, return to your homes in the land that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you on the other side of the Jordan. But be very careful to keep the commandment and the law that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you, to love the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, to keep his commands, and to hold fast to him, and to serve him with all your heart and with all of your soul." Then Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their homes. To the half-tribe of Manasseh, Moses had given land in Bashan, and to the other half of the tribe, Joshua gave land on the west side of the Jordan, along with their fellow Israelites. When Joshua sent them home, he blessed them, saying, "Return to your homes with your great wealth, with large herds of livestock, with silver, gold, bronze, and iron, and a great quantity of clothing, and divide the plunder from your enemies with your fellow Israelites." So the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh left the Israelites at Shiloh in Canaan to return to Gilead, their own land, which they had acquired in accordance with the command of the Lord through Moses. When they came to Gilgal-roth near the Jordan in the land of Canaan, the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an imposing altar there by the Jordan. And when the Israelites heard that they built the altar on the border of Canaan at Gilgal near the Jordan on the Israelite side, the whole assembly of Israel gathered at Shiloh to go to war against them. So the Israelites sent Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, to the land of Gilead, to Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. With him they sent 10 of the chief men, one from each of the tribes of Israel, each the head of a family division among the Israelite clans. When they went to Gilead, to Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, they said to them, "The whole assembly of the Lord says, 'How could you break faith with the God of Israel like this? How could you turn away from the Lord and build yourselves an altar in rebellion against him now? Was not the sin of Peor enough for us? Up to this very day, we have not cleansed ourselves from that sin, even though a plague fell on the community of the Lord. And are you now turning away from the Lord? If you rebel against the Lord today, tomorrow he will be angry with the whole community of Israel. If the land you possess is defiled, come over to the Lord's land, where the Lord's tabernacle stands, and share the land with us. But do not rebel against the Lord or against us by building an altar for yourselves, other than the altar of the Lord our God. When Achan, son of Zerah, was unfaithful in regard to the devoted things, he did not wrath come on the whole community of Israel? He was not the only one who died for his sin. Then Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh replied to the heads of the clans of Israel, "The mighty one, God, the Lord, the mighty one, God, the Lord, he knows, and let Israel know. If this has been built in rebellion or disobedience to the Lord, do not spare us this day. If we have built our own altar to turn away from the Lord and to offer burnt offerings and grain offerings, or to offer sacrifice fellowship offerings on it, may the Lord himself call us into account. No, We did it for fear that someday your descendants might say to ours, 'What do you have to do with the Lord, the God of Israel? The Lord has made the Jordan a boundary between us and you Reubenites and Gadites. You have no share in the Lord.' So your descendants might cause ours to stop fearing the Lord. That is why we said, 'Let us get ready and build an altar,' but not for burnt offerings or sacrifices. On the contrary, it is to be a witness between us and you and the generations that follow, that we will worship the Lord at his sanctuary with our burnt offerings, sacrifices, and fellowship offerings. Then in the future, your descendants will not be able to say to ours, 'You have no share in the Lord.' And we said, if they ever say this to us, to our descendants, we will answer, 'Look at the replica of the Lord's altar, which our ancestors built, not for burnt offerings and sacrifices, but as a witness between us and you. Far be it from us to rebel against the Lord and turn away from him today by building an altar for burnt offerings, grain offerings, and sacrifices, other than the altar of the Lord our God that stands before his tabernacle.' When Phinehas the priest and the leaders of the community, the heads of the clans of the Israelites, heard what Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh had to say, they were pleased. And Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, said to Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, 'Today we know that the Lord is with us, because you have not been unfaithful to the Lord in this matter. Now you have rescued the Israelites from the Lord's hand.' Then Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, and the leaders returned to Canaan from their meeting with the Reubenites and Gadites in Gilead and reported to the Israelites. They were glad to hear the report and praised God, and they talked no more about going to war against them to devastate the country where the Reubenites and the Gadites lived. And the Reubenites and the Gadites gave the altar this name, 'A witness between us that the Lord is God.'"
Well, thank you, Courtney. That was a long reading. Maybe the longest one we've had you do so far. But you kind of have to get the whole story.
It's a story.
There's a lot going on there. So let's start with observations here. What do you guys see in this story?
The overall tone of the first 9 verses is very hopeful, very celebratory. Hey, you kept your promise. You fought with us. And when you go back, just remember the Lord, and the Lord blessed it. And hey, take some gold, take some extra stuff, it kind of sets you up, and then all of a sudden it just turns, and it's like in a couple of verses you go from like blessing and take more to we're going to war. Yeah, it's like a very abrupt turn.
I wrote that escalated quickly. Wow.
Well, I'm going to go back and add some observations to those verses. In verse 5, where it says, "Be very careful to keep the commandment and the law that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave to you." It's like, when you go back, don't go back to your old ways. How many times have we seen that happen? So there's that kind of, warning there. And then I also thought verse 8, where it says, "Return to your homes with your great wealth and divide the plunder from your enemies with your fellow Israelites." That those, like, you're to share it. You're not, it's not just for you because you came and fought. It was like they deserved a share as well. I thought that was interesting.
I'll make the big observation that their sin was, or their potential sin was building an altar, which might be very confusing to people because you say, well, what's the problem with that? It's just, like they wanted to worship it. What are they suspecting they've done wrong? And it comes down to a command that may be one that we kind of don't, it doesn't stick with us because it's not very relevant to us when we're reading Deuteronomy and whatever. It says, only sacrifice in the place the Lord your God will choose. Only build an altar there. Only do it in one place, which is odd because we think, well, you could worship God anywhere. Isn't that how it goes? But God knew that Israel had 2 problems. One was if they worshiped in multiple places, even if they were trying to worship the Lord, because they were in a culture where everybody was polytheistic, if you think, well, there's, I'm worshiping the Lord here and over there and over there and over there, it would quickly devolve into, well, there's like this God over there and that God over there. And it would just be the cultural drift. So one place means one God. But also, this is a group of people that barely get along most of the time, right? Like the tribes are like their family, but that's exactly what's blowing them apart sometimes. And so he knows if I'm going to keep this group unified, they need to, every few months in the year, travel to the same place so that they get together and they worship me together. And so I'm going to make it so that they've got to keep showing up in the same place, and they can't splinter off into all of these different places. And in fact, later in the story, when things do start to splinter off, one of the first things they do is they start building altars in other places. So that's where the command comes from, because we look at it and we're like, you're going to go to war over this? Like, how bad is this, But it would have undermined the fabric of their society from the get-go if this started to happen.
One of my big observations is who they sent.
Oh, Phineas.
They sent Phineas.
Your boy.
Yeah.
My boy, Phineas.
Carrying a
the guy with the
spear. There we go.
But like, that's his business, right? They're like, we're gonna send the guy who is so
Where is it? Phineas.
zealous for God. Like, we're gonna send that guy. And so
Phineas, we got another one.
like, Phineas, get your spear. Come on, buddy. When I read that, I was like, oh, things are gonna get real. Like, it's coming. Here it is.
Yeah.
Phineas, I put it in there. The guy with the spear.
When I read Phineas, I thought Courtney.
Yeah.
Like, I was literally like, now I can't read that without thinking about
about how much I love Phineas. Oh, so good. I mean, he even mentions it was not the sin of peor enough for us. Like, it comes back. So yes, you're supposed to remember that.
Which I knew the Phineas story, but the specific language of the sin of peor, I did have to take a moment. I'm like, wait, do I remember what that was? Like, so I was grateful for the study Bible at that moment of being like, is that the same thing as a not? But yet referring to, and I put it in here, Numbers 25, where Israel has committed sexual immorality with the Moabite women, began to worship Baal, Peor, and God sent the plague that killed 24,000 Israelites. Yeah. So it's like, hey, wasn't that bad enough? That was pretty bad, right?
It's interesting. From that story, they also point out it wasn't just the one or two people that sinned that suffered. This was something that affected everybody. And so if the community doesn't deal with it, like if we just let this happen, this could affect all of us too. So they got to deal with it fast.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and it is it's kind of a contrast to when the golden calf or they're like, no way, man. This is not happening. We are not doing this again. I mean, we just reminded you, don't go back to your old ways. It's, you love the Lord your God, walk in obedience to him, keep his commands, hold fast to him, and serve him with all your heart and all your soul. We told you what to do. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And then this happens. I mean, there had to be a moment of like, oh man, I've heard the story of the golden calf. I know that was like, don't do it again. Don't go back there.
And they also in verse 20, they bring up another story. So it's like they're pulling out the history book and remember, because they mention Achan from Joshua chapter 7, who, they plundered Jericho and they're supposed to give all this stuff to the Lord. And, but he takes a Babylonian robe and hides it. And it's eventually revealed. And it's like the community had to deal with him as well. And so it's like they have a list, they have a memory here that's very specific about honoring the Lord and all these things and dealing with sin severely.
Mm-hmm. One of my observations is that they give them a chance to repent. Mm-hmm. That I think is very interesting, because they go and warn. So if you do this, like, do you really want to do this? Like, don't go down this road. And that's really commendable. Not just that they would confront it, but they would say, you don't have to go down this path. Now, we find out they're not actually going down that path, but the fact that they would say, hey, if you're doing that, we don't want that for you. We want you back, is a really important attitude to have when we see sin in other people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in those two paragraphs, they do a little if-then moment, right? If you rebel against the Lord today, then these things will happen. And then the next paragraph is, if we have built our own altar to turn away from the Lord, then may the Lord himself call us into account. I mean, they echo it right away. They say, yep, you're right. If that is true, then the Lord should call us into account. Yep. You are correct. So I thought that was interesting. I also noted in that same paragraph, they say, the mighty one, God the Lord, the mighty one, God the Lord. And anytime they say God's name twice, I mean, anytime it's 2 times, 3 times in the Bible, like, there's something big there. It's like a pay attention moment.
And they follow that with, he knows. He knows. He knows. Like, God knows. Like, that to me, that struck me, of just like calling the name of the Lord twice and saying, God knows our hearts. Like, you can inquire of the Lord. He knows exactly why we did this. Yeah. He knows our motivation. He knows all these things. Mm-hmm. And it says, and let Israel know. Like, God knows our hearts, but now let Israel know this was our intention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, there's another good thing to take to heart when you're seeing something in somebody else. You got to give them a chance to explain themselves. Mm-hmm. they might not have gotten it. They interrupt. They're like, whoa, let me tell you the real story. But there are times when we think we see something going on, and it is right for us to say, I see something, I'm going to call you to repentance. But there's also a possibility that we've misunderstood what's going on, and people need a chance to say, let me fill you in. I don't know how often we jump to judgment when we're just like, well, that's obviously what it is.
I noticed a repeating word / theme there. It says in verse 27, on the contrary, it is to be a witness between us and you and the generations that follow, that we will worship the Lord at his sanctuary. And then I noticed in the next paragraph, verse 28, it says, if they ever say this test to our descendants, we will answer, look at the replica of the Lord's altar. And I wrote at that point, like, it's a witness to the tabernacle. Like, look at that. And is as a witness between us and you, not for burnt offerings and sacrifices, but as a witness between us and you. And then they give the altar the name, a witness between us that the Lord is God.
Verse 31, Phinehas is responding to them and saying, today we know that the Lord is with us because you have not been unfaithful to the Lord in this matter. Now you have rescued the Israelites from the Lord's hand. So, like, there's part of me that expected him to say, now you've rescued yourselves from the Lord's hand.
Yeah.
Like you've rescued Reuben and Gad and Manasseh. But he's like, no, it's like he includes everybody in this. Again, it's just the communal nature of like the sin in your camp affects all of us. So there's an ownership there that is very humble, I think.
Yeah.
That and they've offered him the response, right? Like they've offered him the truth. And the note I put is, if they had gone in angry, they would have sinned. Like if Phinehas would have gone in with the spear and not stopped and listened to the explanation, like we're showing a little maturity here because he didn't go in with the spear, right? But he's saying to them, like, today we know that the Lord is with us because you have not been unfaithful. Now you have rescued the Israelites. Like, you gave us the explanation, and so we didn't come in and, kill you all. Because that's what we kind of thought was going to happen. Like he went in assuming, like, get the spear, let's go, potentially. But he stopped and he asked questions. He inquired. And because of that, they did not sin if they had gone in hot.
I don't know if this is the case, but it struck me that there's also a saving of future generations, because part of the thing they're doing is, okay, we're not physically in the land, and we're worried that sometime when we don't know, like time has gone past and people don't know the story, or there's distance between our tribes, you're going to look at us as if we don't have a part in you. And this is meant to remind us and remind our children and remind your children that we belong to you guys, and you can't cut us off from the Lord's altar. Because what would happen if our children could no longer come and make their offerings before the Lord? They would be cut off from God. And so there's a sense of, by establishing this and understanding this, there's a chance that future generations are saved because they stay connected to God in that way. And there's something, they're thought to say, we worry that our generation, the generations to come, will forget and not understand all that happened here. And we got to at least try something to make sure they remember, is really profound. Like, there's an insight there that says it's easy for people to drift apart. It's easy for people to forget the past. It's easy for us to say us and them to people who are in a different place or a different, kind of style of life than we are. And this is what happens. This is where it goes. And it's, the consequences are not just, well, we kind of do our own thing. It's like, no, you're cut off from God. Like, this is what this looks like. So it just seems very profound on the parts of these tribes to try and do this.
This might be a little bit of a stretch of a connection, but it sort of reminds me of communion. That communion as a symbol, like the altar was a symbol of like something profound that's supposed to extend generations. But I feel like in many ways that's what communion has been for the church, of this symbol that extends from generation to generation, that we're taking communion just like they did, in the early church, 2,000 years ago, to remind us of a spiritual reality that we might forget if we didn't have that tangible reminder in front of us.
Well, and not just of a connection to the past, but also to people in other places. When we go on Go teams, when we go visit our partners, they celebrate communion too. There's a whole lot of things about their services that do not make sense to us because it's a different culture and it's contextualized. But they'll still take communion. They'll still celebrate baptism and communion as ways of saying, oh, wait. This is, we're all a part of the same thing. Yeah. There's something unifying about that.
Yeah.
I have one observation that I need to make because it's going to tie into my message. But it's an observation of what's not there. And what's not there is that this question of why didn't Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh just tell the other tribes that they had this intention of building this altar?
Yeah.
Like there just is a clear lack of communication, and it created communal anxiety that almost led to war. Like like if Phineas wasn't cool-headed in that moment, if they didn't give an opportunity to repent, I mean, there are some serious potential consequences because this extended family unit did not communicate. And so that was the thing that was like missing from this. I'm like, this seems crazy. Like last week we were talking about how when the Gibeonites came and kind of had the ruse, like Joshua didn't communicate with the Lord, and so there were consequences. And now we have, communicating with God, but now they're not communicating with each other, and there were almost severe consequences there too, because there's no communication there. So I had to observe what's not in the text.
Yeah, it's a good note. All right, let's move on to the M's in common. Let's start with message here. If you guys are going to sum it up, what would you say?
Yeah, I said humble conversation restores peace. It was the humble conversation that was able to restore the peace there, and we'll go into it more in the application, but yeah.
Okay. My message is stating intentions can serve your brothers and sisters by saving them from unnecessary anxiety.
All right. My message is take seriously the unity and the purity of the community. And what I mean by that is the Reubenites, they're building the altar because they want to make sure that we stay united. You don't forget who you belong to. But Phineas and company are there because they're saying, no, the purity, like we can't have unfaithfulness. We can't tolerate that in the community. That will undermine it. And both of those things are going to unravel what's going on here. And so unity and purity are two priorities to take care of. Let's talk about the other M in comma, meditation. And for this one, have a conversation with God about this story. This is one where there's probably not like a line from the story that's like, mull over this one. But overall in the story, we talked a lot about the kind of communication we need to have. Explaining what, you're doing, talking to people when there needs to be a hard conversation, approaching things with humility. Where is there a conversation God wants you to have? Ask him to point in your life where he's saying, I want to talk to you about not just this Bible story, but a situation in your life where you need to have those conversations. Go ahead and pray about that. Let's talk about the A in comma, application. What do we do in response to this?
Well, my message was humble conversation restores peace. And the application I wrote was to be zealous and curious. They did send Phineas in knowing his history, right? They were okay with some zealousy here. And so I wrote, hold people accountable, but listen to people to hear their intentions. So it's not that we just go in with curiosity. We do go in with curiosity, but we also go in with some zealousy. Like we want to protect what we know is true and what God has given us and what's right. And I think sometimes it's even easier in conversations to take sometimes the easy way out, not to be zealous, but to be like, oh, their intentions were fine. That's all good, but go in with the mindset of like, I'm going to be zealous for God and for what's right, for purity. However, I'm going to go in with curiosity and I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to hold people accountable to it, but listen and hear people's intentions. And, I can think of multiple conversations in my life where this will immediately apply, things that I need to remember and consider. I need to go in with the intention of protecting the church, protecting, my family, protecting whatever that is. But I need to go in with enough humility to say, tell me more. Help me to understand.
Yeah.
What is this what's going on so that I can understand and not just go in thinking I'm being protective. So
it's such a hard tension to maintain. Yeah. What's yours?
Okay, my message was stating intentions can serve your brothers and sisters by saving them from unnecessary anxiety. And my application is very focused on my leadership, and I hope it's helpful for other leaders. But as leaders, my application is as leaders, we must over-communicate because clarity is kindness. I started to think about the leaders of these tribes and Phineas, and if they had paused for a moment to over-communicate and to explain intention on the front end, they would have saved all the preparations for war and all the unease and the chaos that was creating in camp thing. We're about to go fight people that we've been fighting with. And so I was just thinking, like, one of the most loving things we can do as a community, and even just as a church, in the way that we interact with each other on a daily basis, is just over communicating and stating intention and doing things that might not seem like a big deal, but can serve other people that we dearly love. Like not sending an email that says, and I quote, "We need to meet."
Ooh.
You know, is there anything more anxiety inducing than we need to meet?
Oh my gosh.
The worst emails.
Or
I'm already,
please call me ASAP. Like, I need to talk to you today. Like sometimes I'm just like, okay, in my good moments, I respond, "Hey, that's great. Could you explain a little bit more about what we need?" Because then, it's just a small thing, I think, that we can help each other by over communicating, establishing intention. And I think that's how we love. I think that's how we love in a community like this, and we treat each other with kindness. And it's how our community thrives.
Yeah. I lost sleep this week because of a message like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it happens, right? Because your brain doesn't know what to do with it.
Right.
Yep.
It's not like you can actually prepare for an ambiguous thing. You just know a conversation's coming.
Right.
So
the altar has been built, and you think, "Oh my gosh, they are worshiping
what's happening?
idols."
What's happening?
And then they're like, "Oh,
I'm worshiping idols."
We just
you start like,
You're like, yeah.
It really, I honestly think there's a Christian calling to say, like, no, state your intention and state your case and protect each other's mental health. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think that's an important thing in the church world.
My message is take seriously the unity and the purity of the community. And my application, so I have one for unity and one for purity. For the purity one, it's the question, do I need to ask someone about anything suspicious? There is certain personalities, mine being one, says, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt for a little while. And I usually end up feeling, like, I should have said something sooner when those things spiral out. And so I need to remind myself, if I see something, there might actually be more benefit for saying, "Hey, notice something? I'm just asking. It may be nothing, but I want to say something." If I don't say something, it always ends up worse. Even if it's a little awkward, it usually ends up strengthening the relationship. You usually feel like, "Hey, this person cares." So I want to say, "Hey, what's going on here? Help me understand." The second application is a question that says, what do I need to do to show my kids that we're in unity with other types of Christians? So one of the things that happens when you grow up in a good church and it's one you're in for your whole life, you don't necessarily know what other Christians experience, what their churches are like. And sometimes when you get older, you're like, whoa, they do what? You're either suspicious of them or you say, why didn't anybody tell me about these things? And there's something really valuable about saying, hey, there are Christians of all different stripes, people who love Jesus, who worship differently, who express their devotion to God differently. It's not the way we do it, but you need to understand that there are brothers and sisters and we're in unity with them, and don't ever forget it. Just like the Gadites and the Reubenites, we don't ever want to say, well, we're not those type of people. No, we are those type of people. They're us. And we should have that unity across churches in our community, across different types of denominations. That there's a unity that the world needs to see between Christians as well. And kids need to see it too. It's a good thing for them to say, wow, we have a big family all over the place. And so when they get out of this environment, they say, oh, I might find myself in different places, but there's lots of us doing this sort of thing, and it preserves the faith.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Join us again next Monday for a new episode where we'll be looking at another passage from the Bible Savvy reading schedule. And in the meantime, if you're not following along with the reading plan, check out BibleSavvy.com. Also, you can subscribe and leave a review on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Email us your questions or suggestions at podcast@BibleSavvy.com. Lastly, tell your friends, and we'll talk to you next week.